Hi guys, Mauricio Rosa from Impactus Promise Keepers Canada here. I hope you've had a great Christmas day. There are stories and characters in the Bible that I confess that sometimes I wonder, why has God allowed these characters and these stories there? There are other stories that I know why. And Jacob's story is one of them. And if you do not know the story of Jacob, he was a real man who lived in history, and all three major religions in the world today acknowledge Jacob. So you can read his story in the book of Genesis, the first book of the Bible, from chapters 25 to 50. So Jacob was a son of a promise. God showed up one day and told Abraham that he was going to become the father of a very large nation and people. And through him, all the nations are going to be blessed. So Jacob, the younger twin brother, is the grandson of Abraham. So Jacob was going to receive the blessing from Abraham according to the promise that was made by God and continue his lineage of blessing. So Jacob knew he was destined to receive a blessing and somehow be a blessing. The interesting thing is that second sons in that culture at the time are pretty much next to nothing. In that culture, Jacob was not going to receive any blessing, much less be the one responsible for the family's lineage. So Jacob needed to do something about it. He could not see how his promise would be fulfilled. The ironic part is that Jacob came out of his mother's womb literally holding his brother's heel. And because of that, his name was Jacob, which means wrestler, heel grabber, someone who always tries to get ahead. It is as if Jacob knew he was destined to be blessed and be a blessing, even from before his first breath outside of the womb. He was determined to succeed in his calling and destiny. That blessing became his pursuit. Jacob did everything he could to receive it. He cheated his brother, who sold his firstborn rights to Jacob for a meal, tricked his dad, pretending to be his brother to steal his dad's blessing from his older brother. And after being threatened with death by his brother, Jacob ran away to his uncle's house. So it was there that Jacob was cheated and then he tasted a little bit of his own medicine. So the years passed, but it did not quench his desire or destiny to receive and become a blessing. So, and here's where his story takes a very interesting turn. It reveals to us the ultimate blessing God desires to bless us, so we can also be a blessing. God told Jacob to go back to his father's land. In Jacob's mind, that land was the way to start fulfilling his destiny finally. The blessing Jacob so desired was the land, the richness of the land, and the idea that his offspring would inherit that land. That was the blessing for Jacob. Jacob was still determined to do anything to receive that blessing. And if you know the story, you remember that what takes place at this point in his life will mark him forever. Literally. In the middle of the night, Jacob wrestled with a man all alone. And it turns out that this man was God. In the original Hebrew language, in the book of Genesis, chapter 32, we can read in verse 24 that God, Jacob, wrestled with Jacob until the breaking of the day. When the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he touched his hip socket, and Jacob's hip was put out of joint. So while Jacob moans on the ground, completely undone, he asks God for his blessing. Jacob has spent his life until that point trying to get the blessing on his own strength and terms. At that very moment, when God touches Jacob, he realizes that he has been fighting with God his whole life. Jacob has been sabotaging himself his entire life, and God was not going to allow that to continue any longer. God was not going to allow Jacob to think that he was in control. That moment was as if God was saying to Jacob and us, Jacob, I have been for you all along. Had you trusted me, I would never let you down. Had you trusted me, you'd not have to try to get the blessing on your own strength and terms. I have been there for you, for your good, all along. If I wanted to kill you, I would not only touch you, I would have crushed you. And from that day forward, Jacob limped. The limp was God's sign of his grace in the life of Jacob, a reminder that God has already blessed him with his love and grace and presence. Jacob woke up that morning a changed man, not only physically changed, but he no longer needed to wrestle with God. Jacob could trust God, that God was all along for him, that God had always wanted to bless him. Brothers, God did not only touch Jesus at the cross, God crushed Jesus at the cross so that his grace can also touch you and me instead of destroying us. As we surrender to Jesus, we may limp for the rest of our lives as we submit to his will and not ours. But know this, God's grace over you covers all of life, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The grace is for you and me, the grace of having God by our side for our good. This is the greatest blessing God can bless us with. And this is the greatest blessing we can share with others. God bless you.